When Nigel Benn dropped out of the ring only 38 seconds into his championship battle with Gerald McClellan on February 25, 1995, very few people would have anticipated that the Englishman would come back and win the fight. There were even fewer people who could have predicted the terrible outcome that was going to befall his opponent just 40 minutes later. Thus, keep watching this video to see the night that changed boxing forever. At the end of 1995, Benn had established himself as a great athletic figure in the United Kingdom, notably after two vicious and bloody battles with Eubank. Even though the second fight finished in a disputed draw, the boxer managed to maintain his WBC Super Middleweight Championship. Also, he went on to successfully defend it against Henry Wharton in February of 1994 and Juan Carlos Jimenez in September of 1994. Despite the fact that Benn would definitely have full backing of the audience that was packed inside Docklands Arena in East London, the bookmakers did not consider him to be their preferred candidate. On the other hand, when McClellan won the title, he had a record of 31-2 with 29 knockouts, 21 of which came inside the first 3 rounds. In addition, McClellan was born in Freeport, Illinois, which is a tiny community located around 100 miles away from Chicago. His father, Emmett, was the one who introduced him to the sport of boxing. McClellan went on to win the middleweight championship of the Wisconsin Golden Gloves for 4 consecutive years, 1984 to 1987. In 1987, he won the National Amateur Championship, and the following year he defeated Jones Jr. in the semifinals of an Olympic trial competition. Although this was the case, Jones was chosen to represent the United States in Seoul, where he ended up winning gold. This was a slight that McClellan was trying to get back at him when they first met as pros. When he had Benn put away, it felt like the next move that made the most sense. Also, he was so obsessed with the color green that he lived his life wearing costly green outfits, driving a green Mercedes, and referred to himself as a G-man. Following his transition into the professional ranks, he suffered 2 early career losses by decision. However, by the time he faced Benn, the G-man had already won 21 consecutive fights straight. One example of this is the fact that in November 1991, the WBO Middleweight Championship was won, and in May 1993, the WBC Comparable Belt was won. Following that, he gave up his middleweight title in order to compete for Benn's Super Middleweight World Belt. The fight was co-promoted by Frank Warren and Don King, who stood ringside of the fight. The fight was shown on ITV, and 13 million people tuned in to see what was expected to be an exciting battle. The night that changed boxing forever. It seemed as if it would be over within a minute, as McClellan appeared to be intent on knocking out Benn in the first round. Meanwhile, McClellan continued to administer punches to the Englishman, who was pinned down against the ropes and fell in that position. So Benn was knocked down by the intensity of the blows, and he could be seen sitting on the apron, appearing as if he was in a state of shock. As Benn made his way back to the ring, he was once again subjected to a barrage of blows. His legs seemed to be weak, and the battle appeared to be going in only one direction. The referee, Alfred Asaro, intervened between the two competitors but chose not to halt the match, so preventing Benn from suffering a humiliating loss that may have been considered very unfortunate. In a subsequent statement, McClellan's trainer Stan Johnson would declare, "The fight ought to have been over there and then." The fact that Johnson did not pull out his opponents when things started to go awry in the latter rounds of the bout is another factor that has been cited against him. Therefore, Benn participated in the competition once he had successfully completed that challenging first round. After that, there was a vicious clash which boxing fans described as the most brutal fight we have ever seen. There is a possibility that it would have been considered a masterpiece if it had not had a tragic ending. There was a little advantage for Benn as the battle went. However, McClellan knocked him out once again in the 8th round by delivering a devastating right hand and then followed it up with a barrage of shots. Benn, on the other hand, was a very tough guy to stop, and he managed to get back up again before the referee called him out. It seemed as if McClellan was in control at this point, but the 9th would completely alter the situation. As Benn was heading into the direction of loss, he was throwing his fists wildly and was unable to hit any of them. As he slumped forward, he accidentally headbutted McClellan through the skull. This is what the doctors think to be the source of the blood clot that occurred in McClellan's brain. He took a knee in order to recuperate. In the 10th round, Benn was able to catch McClellan, who once again knelt down on one knee while blinking in a manner that was very quick. After raising to his feet, Benn seized him once again, and the American knelt down on one knee once more. However, he did not make any effort to fight the count this time. Benn had already won. Without being aware of the pain that his opponent was experiencing, the British player jumped away in joy. McClellan, who was on the other side of the ring, seemed to be in a considerable amount of agony. He was still slouched against the ropes, with his eyes firmly clenched and a scowl covering his face. It became very clear that there was a significant problem somewhere. The clot was removed during an emergency procedure that McClellan received at Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel, which is located in East London. However, he remained in a coma for the subsequent 11 days after the operation. Gerald McClellan, who had been to London, did not come back to his normal residence. McClellan is now blind, partly deaf, and needs the use of a wheelchair as a result of his injuries from which he has been rendered a different person. There is still some G-man left in him. He is aware that he was a boxer and a champion. Nevertheless, the ferocity that he once had has been replaced with passivity and often perplexity. During the last 21 years, his sisters have been his caregivers, and as a result, their lives have also become irrevocably altered. Considering Gerald has no eyesight and considering he's still got deficiency with his short-term memory, and he has trouble comprehending things, believe it or not, physically, he's doing well. His sister Lisa said in 2015 to Boxing News Online. She added, "We do not make use of the wheelchair on a regular basis. Rather, we save it for situations in which he is out in public, or when Gerald is going to a doctor's visit. On the other hand, he is able to walk, and most of the time he does walk. Our opinion is that sitting in a chair all the time is too simple." Additionally, he has a terrific hearing. It is mostly his troubles with short-term memory that are the source of the majority of his problems. Over the course of the last 20 years, McClellan has made a number of public appearances, some of which have been for the purpose of raising money for his ongoing medical treatment. Benn, too, was affected by the events that transpired that evening. During the last several years, he has had a radical conversion to Christianity and is now residing in Australia with his family. After a gap of 12 years, he finally had the chance to meet McClellan in 2007, when a fundraising in London brought in a total of $250,000. In a peculiar manner, McClellan does not seem to have aged to a significant degree in the 21 years that have passed since he battled Benn. It is hard to believe that he is 48 years old since he still has a lovely appearance. He has maintained the same short crop of hair and the same level of trim on his mustache as he had in February of 1995. According to his sister Lisa, with his short-term memory problem, he doesn't exactly remember the Benn fight, but he remembers what I've told him about the fight and what happened. We discuss it very often. He inquires as to whether or not he was injured by Nigel. I tell him, yes, as a result of a headbutt, you have been injured. In addition, he inquires as to whether it was a mistake or whether it was done on purpose. I explained to him that it was really a coincidence. To this day, McClellan maintains his residence in Freeport. A picture that depicts his last bout against Nigel Benn is hung on the wall of his living room. And that wraps things up. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Please hit the subscribe button and we'll see you in the next one.